Voila. You're live. We're live. Saied, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Outstanding. Welcome to Zennie62 Live. And I'm just moving this just
62
over.
live. And
yeah, so
I'm
that
just
people
moving this just 62 over. Live. And
yeah, so I got
just moving this just 62 live. And
got rid of the double speak. Don't want people to think because you're in politics, you're running for anything, you're automatically double speaking. Just kidding.
How are you?
I'm very well. Yourself?
All right.
Great. Hey, Saied, I know out of respect for your time, I'm just gonna get right to the punch. First of all, congratulations on your decision to run again for mayor of Oakland, and welcome once again to Zennie62. Tell my viewers, what's behind your decision to run for mayor yet again for the 2018 mayor's race?
Oh, hey, Zennie, thank you so much for having me, first of all. It is a pleasure to always be hanging out with you and chatting.
Likewise.
Really, the impetus and the motivation is more or less the same. We, as citizens in a democratic world, owe it to ourselves, to our fellow citizens, to create a better life for ourselves, so to speak, right? And in Oakland, I just feel that we have so much opportunity. Things could be so much better. And the only thing that stands between us and where we need to be is our politicians. So, you know, I honestly am running on a platform of a trustworthy candidate with sensible solutions. The candidates or politicians, by and large, have a tendency to compound problems, come up with excuses, instead of just sitting down, rolling up their sleeves, and coming up with really simple solutions to a lot of the problems that we have that can be solved. And it's heart-wrenching to me, I'll be honest with you, when I go around and I see what's come of our city, particularly in the last 4 years, in the last 3 years, to be more precise, and how it has gone down for where it used to be, let alone where it can be. So anyway, long answer to your question of what motivates me. What motivates me every day, I leave my home, I go to work, and I come back, and I see what can be in our city. And it just doesn't have to be this way. To be frank, I do have the flexibility, the capacity to serve. So it's a kind of a combinational thing, right? Both, I do see a need, and then secondarily, I believe that my experience, my commitment, my judgment gives me the opportunity to serve in the mayoral capacity and do a great job for my brothers and sisters who live in Oakland.
I have a number of people already on, and they first, Rick Gray asks, he says, what is this platform regarding homelessness, housing, crime, transportation, and sports? Barry Lee, hey, Barry Lee, when you tweet this out, please tweet this hashtag Oakland. Thank you very much. And then Hennessy asks, what would you have done differently to try and keep the Raiders? And so those are but the first, I'll take Rick Gray first, and I'll repeat the question. What is your platform regarding homelessness, housing, crime, transportation, and sports?
Great question. So let me first share with your audience that my campaign website is everyonesmayor.org. So just spell that, everyonesmayor, no punctuation, everyonesmayor.org. On there, I have it very, very clearly laid out. I have 3 high-level kind of a underpinning of my campaign. One is principles, one is practices, and one is promises. Under principles, I disclose precisely what I believe to be my North Star. So people can go and evaluate what I think, what drives my decision making. Number 2 is practices. Practice meaning how I'm going to conduct myself when I'm in the office. For example, I will disclose my schedule, my daily calendar. I will report out performance reports against metrics that I will be, putting on the plate. So number 3 are my promises. Promises are specific things that are measurable, objective, that I will accomplish. Now, to answer the question with regard to my, my platform, and on the particular topics of public safety, education, housing, jobs. All of those things are interrelated, in my opinion, right? So you cannot have public safety when the community doesn't have comfort of a home. You cannot have public safety if your community is not properly educated. You cannot have public safety if people are not employed in decent jobs. So my number one, if you will, overriding aspect of my campaign, I will take $75 million, that's 30% of OPD's budget, and allocate it to 3 key programs: education, housing, and jobs. And I have, like I said, they're all laid out very, very specifically on the platform, but not to long story short. So we will have, on an annual basis, $25 million allocated to housing each year, $25 million to jobs, and $25 million to education. These are the ways that will achieve true public safety, not adding more cops to the streets. We will never, ever achieve public safety by adding more cops to the streets. We'll never get there. So, but I guarantee you, we will get there when our people have decent homes, awesome jobs, and well-educated community. The other topics, in transportation, we absolutely, I mean, some things that the writing is on the wall that I just cannot believe that our public officials just don't get it. We are going to go through a massive transformation in transportation in the next few years. Electric cars, driverless cars, public transit as a whole, rapid transit, all of that stuff. We need to kind of really put it all in and look at our city and say, how do we need to revamp our throughways, our streets, our sidewalks, our, the crosswalks, all of those things in a way that really prepares us for the next generation of transportation in our city. So that's that. With regard to sports and the Raiders, and I will kind of answer them along. I honestly look at issues that face our cities in a kind of a hierarchy, if you will, right? So we have a huge homelessness problem, for example, in our city, right? To me, that's like right at the very top. In my opinion, we have a huge educational gap where our kids need to be and where they are now, and we need to really address that. So to kind of work through that list, sports, to me, does have a home, and we need to talk about it and figure it out. But honestly, it doesn't rise to that level of emergency burning platform that, Now, if the Raiders want to play nice, if they want to have a home here, they've had a very, very devoted fan base here. I'll be honest with you and to your listeners, I question why some of the fans went to their games last year, this past season, but they went knowing that they abandoned us, right? I mean, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Why do you want the game where people are leaving? But put that aside. That's a reflection of the devotion of the fan base here. So if they want to have a home here, they're welcome to stay. We'll work together. We'll, make some maybe concessions on building the infrastructure around the stadium in a way that helps everyone. Well, they're welcome to stay. But if they think that they're going to have it like they used to, where they expect the city and the Joint Powers Authority throw all the money at them to keep them here, I'm not in.
Rick Gray asks, he says, did you say you wanted to cut the OPD budget by 1/3?
Yes, 30%. Yes, almost 1/3.
Okay,
yep.
Okay.
The current annual budget for OPD is about $225 to $250 million. I would cut it I would remove $75 million from that, is about 1/3 of it. Yes.
And then Rob Byman asks, he says, where do you prefer a new ballpark for the Oakland Athletics? As you may be aware, there is the
Howard Terminal.
Howard Terminal. Woo!
Howard Terminal. That will be an iconic location. I was in the Washington.
I have to note, you're wearing green right here. You got A's green, right?
That's right.
There you go. Okay.
So I was in when Camden Yards was built in Baltimore. Mm-hmm. I lived in Washington D.C. and I took the train up there a few times, and I tell you, it had a transformational impact on the city of Baltimore when Camden Yards was built there. If we were to build Howard Terminal and make that area the transit hub of the Bay Area, which it needs to be. We need a BART station there. We need to move the Amtrak station from where it is currently in the Jack London area up to Howard Terminal. We have the ferry already coming in from San Francisco and other points in South San Francisco and so forth. So you have this really beautiful, iconic place that will just, it'll look amazing. It will be untouchable in terms of its distinctive look and what it represents in the Bay Area, right on the water, with those, cranes right in the backdrop. That's the best place by far.
Mr. Ayman has a follow-up. He's asked, how would you clear the environmental hurdles around Howard Terminal?
It's solvable. You know what? Let's say there's a ton of contaminants there. Sure. It's got to get done, right? We have to remove it. We can't just say any other way is kicking the can down the road, right? So we come together. We figure out what the answer is. We clean up our space. In West Oakland needs a lot of environmental cleanup to begin with. Let's just start, right? We start, we clean it up. Fast forward 2 or 3 years from now, we'll have a beautiful, thriving, iconic space that will be the envy of the entire league. I am certain of that.
Now, I'm curious. This is my question, shifting gears from the athletics, but it is sports related. How come we don't look at, instead of sports being a personal issue, it being part of the MICE industry? That is meetings, incentives, conventions, and entertainment. That's an industry unto itself. And we've given up a lot of square foot to San Francisco and every place else, and we don't have enough hotel rooms. How can we get back to actually looking at our economy from a more clinical basis as opposed to a more emotional one as to how someone feels about this sport or that, or people not having enough jobs regardless of their education or income?
If I answer your question, you're saying that why don't we create the attraction to Oakland for conferences, for entertainment venue, and so forth?
It's not so much that. It's just that we don't, and it's not just you, Saied. It's just a number of people over the last 16 years. They don't take a clinical look at economic development. In other words, where are we in the matrix of jobs for category? Oh, by the way, if we build a stadium that's also a convention center space because it's enclosed, right? We don't take a clinical look at these things, and so we wind up with a situation where we have people who are homeless. It seems like we're haphazard. If I'm wrong, let me know that I'm wrong. But it's a frustration that is built within me because I hear this again and again and again. Can we get back to a place where we're more structured in how we look at economic development?
I think so. So, we need to create our marquee brand, so to speak, right?
Yeah, right.
And absolutely. I believe there are opportunities. One is the innovative creative space, right? We have an abundance of artists, musicians, sculptors. If you just drive around Oakland, you see them everywhere. Why not have a, full-on annual festival, right? Arts festival that brings in literally hundreds of thousands of people. I lived in central Pennsylvania. I went to Penn State University in central Pennsylvania. Each summer, right around 4th of July, there'll be a 1 week where literally more than the residents of the city would come into our little city to the tune of 100,000 people for this annual arts festival. We can literally just shut down Broadway from, let's say, 14th all the way up to, Temescal, and have this just beautiful, attraction that comes in. So that's one, for example. Another one is what I'm really big on, and I would really make this a big point for us, is education. If you, it sounds boring, right? Education. Listen to anyone who accepts an award in any capacity, whether it's an athlete, whether it's a actor, whether it is, any other profession, whether it's a, what do you call it, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, right?
Right.
More often than not, they will acknowledge a teacher at some point in their lives who was the critical point. Why don't we, in the city of Oakland, institute the equivalent of the Oscars for teachers?
I like that, yeah.
Why don't we have an annual, right? Think about that. It's so easy, right? You have a dozen, 15, 20 categories, right? Elevate our teachers to where they belong. The teachers are probably the most valuable people in our community, or in our society, I should say. And the reason is that they forego the desire or the greed aspect of our society, and they really commit themselves to betterment of our children. At least let's acknowledge them for it, right? At least let's have a one night a year when we kind of really devote to showing off our best teachers and letting them kind of be our guests of honor, so to speak. So anyway, I know I get emotional about some of these things, and it's important. And you asked, the question you asked was, how do we make, the way I heard at least your question, right, make it a place where people come to Oakland for. And those are really key things that we can do easily. I think we will, not in a necessarily a selfless way, but in a kind of a higher purpose way, create an inviting space for people to want to not just come to, but to live in, to work in, to raise their families in, and be proud of when they kind of are in the streets.
Another question is, and I think it touched on something you and I talked off camera, is what are your plans for keeping the rents low? And we'll just extend that to homelessness in general, because I think you have an interesting take on what's going on now, and then how to fix the thing in the future, the problem in the future of homelessness.
I'll be honest with you. It is a solvable problem. It's absolutely a solvable problem. And the problem is this: we need to build public housing, period. Public housing, public housing, public housing. And I tell you why. It's not public housing. Don't mistake with Section 8 housing, right?
I understand.
Public housing is the exact same housing built by the same contractors, by the same material, with the same design and the same structure, without the greed and the profit motives of developers. Done. Right? So you build the same structure, same thing, and then you either rent them or you sell them, preferably to people who need to live in Oakland. They just can't afford to live in Oakland. And that's where some of that $25 million a year would be used to fund that. Plain and simple. I don't know if I shared this with you when we were off earlier when we spoke, but this is a very, very important thing for people to realize. How homes and housing is not just a shelter. It's financial security. The #1 retirement plan in the United States is a paid-off mortgage and Social Security payments. Monthly Social Security payments, paid-off mortgage. For as long as our neighbors live in rental properties, they will never achieve financial security in their lives. So we need to do whatever it takes to get people to live in the homes that they can own, and therefore achieve that financial security. So, that's the bottom. Now, let me just quickly insert in there. I am all for rental protection, fair housing and all those things. All I'm saying is that that's a necessary but not sufficient solution to housing.
Now, so I have to ask you, because a friend of mine claims that the impact fee program is sufficient in terms of providing money for affordable housing. What's your take on that?
Well, obviously it's not. It's not my argument. It's right now. It's insufficient. We need to, just dig down and really get to the bottom of it. Now, frankly, there are at least 2,000, and probably they're closer to 3,000 of our brothers and sisters who are going to be in the streets tonight, and it happens to be raining right now here in Oakland. It just doesn't have to be that way. It just doesn't have to be that way.
Now,
if I may continue.
Yeah. Oh no, this is your platform. I'm sorry. I'm listening. Sorry about that.
Listen to this.
Sure.
Right. We have just recently, when I say we, I'm talking about the city of Oakland, has just sanctioned a lot of land and placed, I believe, 42 tough sheds in there, and each one houses 2 individuals. There was a representative from one of the Scandinavian countries that was here earlier this week, and they went and toured that, and they considered inhumane. Yes, put that into perspective. To us, we just did this monumental thing where out of the 3,000 people who are on our streets, we just put 80 of them in these tiny homes, these tough sheds, and we figured that's an accomplishment. We're so proud of it. We think we've done them good. They view it as inhumane. Right? So right. That's where this is not normal. This is not normal. There's no reason why people in the richest, most affluent, corner of the most affluent country in the world should be living in the streets is acceptable, even for a night, let alone for months on end. So, anyway, this was what we have today is not working. Let's just put it that way.
Hey, what's your take on how the city has been managed? The fact that we've had, on the average, every 2 years, a new chief administrative officer. We've had a lot of instability. Morale has largely been low. We just had a strike that was resolved. As mayor, how would you restore the confidence of the Oakland worker in the city of Oakland?
I think people, again, I use myself as an example, and use kind of the golden rule as my litmus test of what's right and what's not right. People are watching. They see what the motives of their leadership is. They see the things that need to be done. And if they don't believe that's congruent with what needs to be done, they will not be loyal. They will not be happy. They will not be satisfied. They will not take pride in their work. So in my career, I was keen, and I led teams across, many countries and, around the globe. And really the way I did it, and I really was able to get support and kind of the emotional investment of my subordinates into their work was by virtue of caring for them, by virtue of showing them that I am in the fight with them. We can't take people for granted. They need to be appreciated. They need to understand that they're valued. Their input is valued. And I will be very hands-on, very, seek their input, seek their advice, seek their, solutions. They're the ones who are close to the action, and they can tell me the best way to do things.
Now, what kind of office will you have? There are 2 schools of thought. In other words, have a small staff of people, or have a large staff. When I worked for Elliott Harris, we had 27 people. We had policy advisors for economic development, education. What will your office look like? Your mayor's office?
Generally small, but I would look to have frequent town halls. So literally have town halls around the city, at least on a monthly basis, maybe more, to be close to what people are thinking. So I want to engage the people. If you work with people who are informed, you can come up with really practical solutions that do not cost a lot of money. They do not need a lot of time to implement. When we try to come up with solutions from the ivory tower and top-down approach, we end up with all these costly things. And frankly, I'll be honest with you, a lot of times the solutions and I put the solutions in quotes, come from vendors, vested interest to sell you stuff, to sell you consulting, to sell you planning, to sell you design, to sell you all these things that really are of no use to our people. We don't need any of that. We can just go straight to the people who know the answers, and we just need to ask and seek their input and advice.
This goes back. Rob Iman's got a flanks of questions. This one is another good one. What do you think of the idea of community policing? I'll piggyback onto that. What do you think of the how's the current police chief doing, or should she worry about getting a new job if you happen to be the mayor? If you're elected, if you win.
I love community policing. That's the only way you'll achieve true public safety. My police chief, frankly, needs to figure it out. If it is Ann Kirkpatrick, again at this point, but she needs to figure out how she's going to deliver the same results at a minimum with $75 million less a year.
Now, the other question that Rick Gray is coming back to is he's curious as to why the justification for the reduction in Oakland cops. He trots out a statistics that's old regarding Oakland's crime rate. I don't think he's aware of our current crime reduction, but I want to know what your take on why it's, why reduce the police workforce as you have advocated.
There is not one shred of evidence, locally or nationally, that supports a correlation or a causation between the number of officers and public safety. Even today, where the mayor is going around and touting the crime rate reduction since 2012 to today, if you look at it, more than 50% of the reduction occurred from 2012 to 2014, when we had the lowest number of police officers. And then from 2014, when she came into office, to 2018 is when we have gone on a rapid increase. But more than half of the reductions occurred while we were on a decline of police officers. At the bottom, we had 600 police officers. We're on our way to almost 800 police officers. But the rate of decline was faster in the own material that she's providing and is currently on the city's website. And I'm shocked that she's actually providing that information because it's a discredit to her argument.
Wow, fascinating.
Shocking. Just look at it. It's just absolutely laughable that she should only put 2014 to 2018 on there because it would support her argument. But when she puts it from 2012 to 2018, it actually is a discredit to her argument that more police officers are creating safer streets.
Hey, tell my viewers who Saied Kamarooz is, because Rick Gray says so. Does he have a background in public service? Tell them about yourself and how you came to live in Oakland.
So the short story on it is I am a first-generation immigrant from Iran. Came here in 1978, here meaning the United States. I lived on the East Coast for many, many years. Moved to Oakland in 2010, so I'm here almost 8 years. I spent my career in information technology, and that was pretty much what I did up until 2010. Actually 2012. My wife and I both kind of took a semi-retirement for a couple of years, and then we now currently have our own startup company in West Oakland, where we manufacture skincare products that are all organic, made here in Oakland. We employ people in Oakland, and we sell our products worldwide. Interest, frankly, and my activism, if you will, started in approximately about 7 years ago, and then culminated in running for the mayor of Oakland 4 years ago. And it's really, in terms of my public service, currently I am serving on the Privacy Advisory Commission in the city of Oakland as an appointee of our council member at large, Rebecca Kaplan. In addition to that, I have worked with a number of local, activist groups, most recently and currently the Coalition for Police Accountability. We were the group that were behind in getting Measure LL, the police commission, on the ballot 2 years ago. 2 years ago, in 2016,
yep.
And passed it with 83% public support. So those are kind of the super high level background on me. Take a look at my website. There is a bio on there. People ask, this is a legitimate question, naturally. What are my motivations? Absolutely no political motivation. I have not been a career politician. This is not a stepping stone. I'm not just trying to be a mayor of Oakland so I can move up the ladder. I'm just doing it, frankly, for the sake of my fellow Oaklanders.
Hey, I'm going to ask this question real quick. As you know, of course, recreational marijuana use is legal in Oakland and the state of California. The big, and as are the ability to sell for profit, growth. But the main problem many have pointed to is there's an uneven playing field based on race in terms of the ability to get involved in the sale of marijuana. What's your take on that? Is that true from your point of view? Maybe you have a point of view that, is beyond mine. I'm not an expert, but as mayor, what's your point of view about that? And if there's a problem, how do you intend to solve it or improve on what we have?
Inevitably, it's a problem. Really, it's going to go down the direction of the tobacco industry. There's no reason why the Philip Morrises of the world would not just come in and have these massive, massive farms and just run out every independent small grower out of business. Mm-hmm. So that's a serious problem we need to kind of be prepared for. But also, yes, likewise, the financial constraint of our low income community puts them at a disadvantage for securing the loans and the capital that they need to open up a store, to run an operation, right? It's all these things require capital. You need to make an investment in order to cultivate, and then once you cultivate, then you get the money back, but mm-hmm. There's a gap in between, right? You have to, there's a cash outlay and then the return. So all of those things, and a key element of that is the public bank that I have put on my platform, uh-huh. which would serve mm-hmm. that exact purpose mm-hmm. to equalize those disadvantaged communities in a variety of businesses, not just cultivation of marijuana, and preparation and sale, but everything else.
Hey, how are we doing? How are we doing on time for you? We're at 8:32.
Can I get like 3 to 5 minutes?
Awesome. Hey, you want to talk? 2 questions, and I'm going to say real quick. Hey, go CSU. We talked about the Raider issue earlier before you arrived, so I don't want to revisit that because I'm going to cover some new ground with him. We're going to have him back. He's my friend, if you can stand me. But the whole point is what do you think of the or what's your take on as mayor, where the city is going in terms of its demographics? Are we becoming the next San Francisco? And if so, how do we prevent that? Or is that a bad thing?
It's a horrible thing. It's a horrible thing. It's like it's for the very reason we're so attractive, and then we lose it because we were so attractive, right? No, first of all, we'll have twice the land mass of San Francisco, half the population. So there's no need for displacement. Everyone can stay where they are, and we can take in the new income or the influx of people who want to come here. So it's not like there's a need for everyone that comes in. We have to displace someone. So to answer your question, no, we have to protect our neighborhoods. That is what makes us unique. That is what makes us so attractive. So it's, to me, and the unfortunate sad thing is, honestly, it's irreversible, meaning that if once somebody gets displaced, undisplacing is just not an option, right? So we really have to become very aggressive, very vigilant in protecting our neighborhoods, protecting the people who have been here across all aspects, right? People who have been here in generations, people who are low income, not necessarily just low income, but people who work in low-paying jobs, right? But we need them. People who are in, custodial services for our schools, they should live in Oakland. They shouldn't have to travel for hours to just come to work, right? And so forth. Our teachers, our, public servants, all these kinds of, we should all be here. The artists, right? Just because, they came here and they made a great place, not everyone wants to live here, they shouldn't be forced to move out. So we should be protective of all of those categories, not just, otherwise we just end up with a whole bunch of young, IT professionals, and there's not much attraction in that. Not even for them, not even for them. Sure. They're coming here for the diversity that we have here.
Anyone who wants to contact you, help out on your campaign, ask you more questions, how can they do that?
Everyone'smayor.org. That's what this campaign is all about. Everyone's mayor. Not just the elite, not just the deep pockets, not just the special interest, everyone's mayor, including those people that I just named, because by virtue of lifting all of our citizens, they will be lifted too. They will be seeing neighborhoods that are thriving. They will be seeing a city that's attractive. They'll be seeing energy on our, in our streets, on our shops, everywhere. So everyone'smayor.org. Check it out. Look at all of my content that's there in terms of my principles, my practices, my premises, specific listed, the platform. It's all there. My bio is there. Get involved. That's my advice. Get involved. And one of my principles, I'll be honest with you, don't blame the politicians. We're the ones who voted for them. We need to take ownership. We need to take responsibility and then do what's right. So thank you. I really appreciate the time.
I appreciate your taking the time, Saied, and I want to have you back. And hey, folks, I'm going to talk to Saied off camera. I'll be back about 15 minutes or so. But thank you very much. And please, if you're watching this and want to tweet it out, again, tweet it out under the hashtag OAK Media. It's Oak Media. It's OAKMTG. And then also hashtag Oakland. All right. Saied, stick around.
Okay.
Folks, I'll be back. Thank you so very much. Thank you very, very much.